a very young Richard
Thank
Houlihan.
you.
And by the way, for those who have commented in the past, how can you have no women in this group? All the ladies showed up for Richard. I just want to make a note of that, because that does not typically happen. We typically have more men than women, but I don't know. Is it Eudamed or is it Richard?
Obviously, my charm and deportment and everything else has
The
to
way
be.
you deliver the message.
Yeah, and what a message it is.
Yes. So now officially we will start and say Eudamed. Now you have to say back to me, no Eudamed.
No, you'd have. We could be here all day with this one.
All right, well, let's officially start. Eudamed.
Right. What I'll do is I'm going to give a very short presentation if that's what you wish, or do you just want us just to generally chat?
You can start with a few basics for those at home who may not be as Eudamed familiar as you, and I'm sure the questions will come, and half of them will be from me.
Okay. For those of you who don't know me, Richard Houlihan, my background is IT. I'm old enough to have 27 plus years of IT. I had other careers first, though. We'll go with that. I joined the commission in 2011 to take over their Eudamed 2 project, and Eudamed 2 is the current live because it's still legally binding at the moment, and it's only competent authorities and the commission that get to use it. The only ones that get to see it. When the notified bodies submit their data, they give it to the competent authorities. The competent authorities take that XML and they upload it once a month to Eudamed 2, which is a disaster. It's full of duplicates. God love them. It's an awful mess.
Well, I mean, the name itself is Eudamed 2.
Yeah. Eudamed originally came from DIMD in Germany. Eudamed 1 was a copy of what DIMD were doing in Germany.
I'd never heard of the commission before.
DIMD would be the biggest of the competent authorities in Germany. They were like I suppose would it be the overseer you'd call them, the top of them, because they used to all push everything through DIMD and onto the commission. So anyway, 2011 went in there. I was sharing an office then with the guy that was running the Eudamed 3 project, the main commission official in at least the IT side of it. And he was in trouble because the commission had completely underestimated how big an IT project this was. I was at pains to try and explain to them that this isn't a project, it's a whole program, because each individual module is a project in itself. So eventually, I just bullied my way into that project. I kept Eudamed 2 on one side and took over the technical management side of Eudamed 3, and I was driving the IT teams, and because of my background, I was heavily involved in all that. All of which was very handy because I had an epiphany in 2012 at a working group meeting where I had decided that I was going to, I like that.
I thought the same thing. So for those who can't read it, Luke writes, is competent authority an oxymoron?
So to cut a long story short, I took over Eudamed 3, ran the technical side of that until April 2019 when I decided I had enough information to come back into the private sector. I, like everybody else, had expected Eudamed to be launched on March 2020. How wrong can we be? So at the moment, we have just under half of Eudamed live. We have the actors, the devices, and certificates live.
Would you attribute any of the delay to the pandemic, or it wouldn't have hit?
It's a funny one. When I left in April 2019, August 2019, the commissioner said everything was on time. By September, there was a new commission in, and the head civil servants like to pretend that they actually have control over things. So they moved things from one directorate to another. So they moved the medical devices across the road. It literally is just across the road to what's now DG Santé. But 5 years earlier, they moved it from DG Santé across the road. So it's just gone back and forth a few times, which normally doesn't cause a problem. But this time, some of the IT team said they weren't going because they used to work for DG Santé and didn't want to go back. So first of all, they put a hole in it. Then COVID came along. COVID, I think, was I think it was just a handy excuse. Yeah, like I say, it was perfect timing for them. Now, unfortunately, at the moment, all the development team, I think it's up to 25 of them now, they're all split. They're all over the place. So it's a difficult thing. I would say some of the delay can be put down to the new commission and COVID, but some of the delays are self-inflicted.
The name of this talk is "It's Not All Bad." So
It's not.
so far it's been bad. What have you got? What good news have you got for us?
The good news I have, and again, it's totally 100% personal on this one. Because of COVID, because of the lockdowns, I'm sitting here in Ireland. I've got fields, literally fields either side of me, big green fields.
Let's see. You have windows? Let's see real quick.
Let me pick up the camera here and I'll show you one side. That's out into my back garden.
Nice.
And if I go the other side, can't really see it too clearly.
Very nice. This is what the people come for, by the way. It is.
So, because of the whole pandemic, we decided to hide out here. We're on our way to Bulgaria, but we decided to hide out here because this is where our home is, and no traveling. Everything is done online. All the training that we do, all online, 100%. It gave us time. So what we've managed to do during the whole lockdowns, and this is my bit of good news, is we now have our software perfected. We've got two types of software. One SaaS system that you upload your data over the cloud, and another one that we install on your servers. And it manages the full master data management, the uploads to Eudamed, the validations, the conversions to XML, you name it.
I remember how clever you were. Tell the folks at home what your URL is.
It's eudamed.com. How difficult is that to remember?
How difficult was it for somebody on the commission to go get the domain name?
That's a sore point, apparently.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Have they tried to buy it out from you?
Let's say we had some warm discussions about things.
Okay.
They got in touch a little bit and we had discussions. But I bought these in 2016. They had Eudamed 2 from 2011. It became legally binding. And Eudamed 1 was there from 1997.
There's a marketing lesson in there for you folks.
Huge. Having said that,
I can only speculate what kind of traffic you get.
It's becoming a lot.
Yeah, I think so.
The slower the commission are at answering the support questions, the more people are coming to us and go, look, can you help with this? And hey, anything to do with Eudamed we can help with. Because even with all the documentation they've published, even with these fabulously crafted things that are nearly impossible to understand, I was still on the inside. I still know what they've done, how they did it. A lot of the plans that were there in April 2019 are just coming to fruition now. So we've been fortunate. We've been very fortunate.
Well, I think it's great, as you have such a great niche. And as I've shared a couple of times, my pea brain can just remember a few things. If I hear Eudamed, I think of you because Eudamed.
Somebody called me Mr. Eudamed on LinkedIn one day. I can't remember what. I can't remember her name now. That's terrible.
That's okay. I think it could even be in your headline. Seriously.
Well, one of the things that we do on LinkedIn, as you may have noticed, anything the commission publishes, I try and get it on LinkedIn before the ink is dry, so that everybody on LinkedIn now, they can just stay there. Everything is coming to them very fast because the commission have this thing in their head that, well, we've published it. Obviously, everybody knows where it is, which is slightly wrong, really. I mean, when I left the commission, I was under the impression from being inside that all you guys, you all knew about Eudamed. You were all ready, like coiled springs, ready just to throw your data at it. I got out and nobody had a squiggly. Nobody had a clue, which is why we ended up doing the training in the first place.
Years and years ago, again, this is a conversation about you, not about marketing, but I can't help myself. I just remember someone whose opinion I greatly respect saying that a lot of people are like, I have to produce content. I have to produce. You don't just publish and I produced. you should spend like 4 times as much time promoting what you've written than writing.
Absolutely.
Because,
Absolutely.
hey, I've already put it on my timeline. Yeah, and I didn't happen to be on at that point, and I didn't scroll all the way down to the 1,000th thing to find yours. So chances are you're not annoying your friends by publishing it 5 times because they didn't see the first 4.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? I mean, we started the little Eudamed group as well on LinkedIn, so it's all in one place as well. If anybody, if people want it, but Eudamed is live now, right? It's voluntary. However, possibly one bit of good news: get your data in now, otherwise you could be in trouble. I'm not sure if that's considered good news or not.
Well, I mean, you said it was voluntary. I didn't realize that this was voluntary.
It's voluntary until Eudamed is fully functional, and when it's fully functional, then it's legally binding. And then you've got some transition periods. But at the moment, the devices and the actor registration is voluntary. However, coming from IT, when you put something live, you pay very close attention to it. Any pin that drops, anything that stutters slightly, the little heart stops and you go, bloody hell, what's wrong here? You dive on it. But as time goes on, your attention has moved to another piece. So when the problems arise, you're like, oh yeah, I'll get to that. I'm doing this interesting stuff now. And that's what's happening with the IT team inside. They've got some people working on the vigilance module. They still have a good proportion of the team working on the devices module. But as soon as everybody moves, your support is going to be minimal. There's expected to be 320,000 users and 80,000 companies.
Wow.
And that's their estimate. So I would extrapolate that that's going to be a lot higher. Okay.
It sounds counterintuitive to me that I would lessen support at that time.
And it's not even a case of lessening support. They already have minimum support. There's like 2 people. And what they do, when a message comes in, they farm it out to the IT team.
Of 2 people?
From 2 people. The Eudamed support team has 2 main support people. They send everything to the development team, who at the moment are paying attention. But you move forward a few months, they will not be paying attention. Those tickets are just going to queue up. At the moment, I've got 7 tickets in there, 7 emails in there.
Because you don't know the answer, or you're unable to answer it.
It's problems with something they put live.
Oh, so bugs.
Yeah, things that they missed, like I'm stuttering over E's, the EMDN codes. There's like 8,000 lines to this spreadsheet, and on lines 7,000 and something, they've missed the codes. They've got the name in there, but they've no codes. So I emailed them to warn them about this. There's other things, and it was something that I warned about 2 years ago. There's equipment for adipose. Now, I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation or not, but it's what I'm going with. But in the original codes, they spelt it equipment with EMNT instead of MENT. And I warned that someone somewhere is just going to fix it because it's human nature. It's wrong, I'll just fix this. So they've actually fixed it on the XML, but they didn't fix it on their documentation, which gives the list of all the codes that are going to be there. So when you upload your XML with the wrong one, it's going to go, goodbye, you're not getting in. And everything gets blocked.
It sounds to me as though they might do well to set us up a couple euro aside to have you come in and make these changes for them.
I'm sure they'd be delighted to see me coming back in.
But that's not something you're willing to do.
Oh, I'd do it in a heartbeat.
Then
to be honest, there's nobody else in the private sector with the level of knowledge or
that's why you're Mr. Eudamed.
Yeah. There's a lot of little things that they will get them. They will get them.
Why doesn't it happen?
The commissioner, are a funny bunch of people. It's like any civil service. When you're in there, you're in there. When you're out, you're gone.
Eddie, you have a question?
Yeah, well, I have so many questions, but
don't we all?
the top 2 are, frankly, I'd never heard of Eudamed, so I broadly get a sense of what it is, but how does it fit in with MDR?
It is the core. MDR and IVDR, they're all about getting everything done right with the regulations. But the core of the whole system is putting the data together and storing it in a place where you've got full transparency, or near as damn it full transparency. So even in, is it Article 120, there's a whole section within the MDR which explains that when Eudamed is delayed, this affects this article, this article, this article. There's a whole raft of them in there. But it is the core, which it's like your it's a far larger good ID database.
Okay.
So,
I thought it was the name of the commission. You're saying it's the name of the platform? I use Word, Excel, I use Eudamed?
Yeah, it's the software.
I didn't know that.
It's an acronym for the European Medical Device Database, or I think they called it data bank at one stage. But it's effectively.
I only heard it as I thought of it as an adjective for the word commission.
No. This is very, very specific. It's the medical device database.
I did not realize that.
And on top of that, there is several other countries that are using the CE mark and the fact that your data is going to be in Eudamed as the opening gambit. That's what you need to get into our country, and then we'll start looking at you. The likes of Saudi, Singapore, these guys are going, right, if you're in Eudamed, if you have your CE mark, then that's when we start discussing things here. Does that answer your question, Edward?
One in part, yes. But so my problem is our notified body themselves still haven't got their MDR approval. So they can't do anything for us until they do. Have you got any insight into what the hell's going on with all of this? That's sort of category one. And category two is I'm based in the UK. And what is I mean, obviously to sell in Europe, I'm clearly going to have to be registered with you guys, but what's going on with the, is it the MHRA that's going to handle a similar sort of capacity that you have?
Yep. I'll start with your second question first.
Yeah.
The MHRA, obviously, I worked with them over the years when we were doing the Eudamed stuff. Absolutely loved working with them.
What's the acronym stand for?
Don't know.
It's the Medical Health Regulatory Authority or something like that.
Is that a UK thing?
It's the UK Competent Authority.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency.
There it is. Yeah.
Okay. Loved working with these guys. Now, what the MHRA have done is, at the moment, there's no talking between Europe and Britain, we'll say. It's the simplest way of putting it. So there's no mutual recognition agreements.
Because of Brexit.
Yeah. Well, Brexit, plus there's probably some other people have their fingers in that one as well. But the MHRA are trying to stay as close to Eudamed while staying away from it at the same time, because eventually there will be a mutual recognition agreement and there will be data swapping between the two. So that when you guys are uploading your data to the UK, it will be so simple all of a sudden just to point that data to the EU and have the same information coming through. So the MHRA with that one are trying to they are trying to stay close while still appearing to stay very far away. No.
One of the many things of, now we're going to have a CA mark on top of the CE mark, which just is more cost and more administrative headache.
This is the first time here. What's the CA mark?
Well, it's the British. It's going to be the UK equivalent of the CE mark, because the E for CE is Europe. So I guess the A is going to be Anglo.
And on top of that, when you're uploading your data to the UK system, you have to pay for it. You are charged to enter your data.
Is it not true for yours?
If I'm uploading it for you, I'll charge you.
Yes, of course.
If you're putting it in yourself, it's free.
So you offer a SaaS model and a second, I forget what that was, but
installed on your own system, installed on your own service.
Okay. Doesn't Eudamed exist elsewhere? I'm confused, because if I type my data into your place, I pay you.
Okay.
Could I go to like the public one and not pay?
Yeah, no, absolutely. If you go to the Commission's Eudamed application,
Where would you find that? It's not at .com, it's at
no, it's europa.eu. I can't even remember the full URL for it, but because of their corporate image, they're not allowed to use specific URLs like that. They have to stay within this europa.ec.eu domain. It's corporate image, like their version of a .gov, but for Europe.
But that's what adding URLs are for, but
yeah, adding your own data into Eudamed costs nothing. The reason we charge for our service is purely because the amount of work that is required to prepare the data, to validate it against the rules, to create the exact XML formats that again meet the rules, and then submit it. That's what you're paying for. Pure and simple. It's to save you designing an IT system yourself, which will cost you many hundreds of thousands. Now, getting back to one question from Edward very quickly on the notified bodies. The Commission have been working on this all the time. The quick designation takes over 9 months because these guys go through it with a fine tooth comb. This is not just, hey, I'd like to apply for this and here's 50 quid and we're good to go. To become a notified body, the hoops that they now have to jump through are phenomenal. I was speaking to one of the ladies from BSI on how they've built up their IVDR side. All those people are sitting there doing nothing for about 1.5 to 2 years because under the designation rules, you have to have X team in place, even though you can't do anything. So some of the delays within the designations have literally been down to companies just applied too late. I'm not blaming the companies, but you know what? If you're not first in, you're not going to be first out. So that's one issue. Then you have the whole COVID-19 thing with the people separated and everything, the lack of ability to do the audits. But the Commission have dedicated, this is one thing I will give the Commission credit for. They have seriously a big team dedicated to doing these designations. So while you don't see anything happening in the public, this thing is like the swan. It's just gracefully moving across, but underneath they're paddling like crazy. They really are. And some of the people in the Commission are absolutely fabulous. They are such hard workers. So you do have the alternative as well, but there is a lot of good people involved in doing some of these things.
Can I think of the place where I could enter the stuff for free and you make an error and you don't catch it, but if I use your thing, you're going to guide me and how to help me put it in and be correct the first time? Is that the basic service offering that you have versus what I could do for free?
There was a woman that came to one of our training sessions and she told us that herself and her colleague went blind at Eudamed. They wanted to enter one basic UDI, one UDI DI, just one and one, okay? Because they always have to go together anyway. It took her 45 minutes to enter one basic and one UDI DI. To enter a second UDI DI took another 20 minutes. So if you've got a few thousand UDI DIs, suddenly your hours of adding data manually gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So I spoke to a gentleman who had a system created for the FDA. And he reckoned they had spent just over $1 million. Now they have tens of thousands of devices, but they'd spent just over $1 million producing this piece of software. And I said to him, right, I said, geez, interesting, $1 million, I'd like a piece of that. What are you going to do for Eudamed? He said he doesn't care. He is not creating another system. He's going to outsource it. He said there's no way he's going through those headaches again. And believe me, we've been 18 months on this software, both pieces. And it is, from an IT point of view, there's no great mathematical computations and there's no real rocket science, but there's so many rules, there's so many little things that you have to pay attention to. It's massive. There's no way you could create it for less than a couple of 100,000.
I haven't seen your marketing, but I'm wondering, I'm getting a sense that, yeah, you could go the free way, or you could do this and save this much time, and here are all of the things that you would lack. Do you have a little video of why pay me instead of do it for free?
Not using those exact words,
Yes, of course.
but yeah, we've got several things. Do you want to see one of the forms? How much data is involved in it?
Sure. But Rob, you had something you want to contribute.
Hey, Rob.
I was going to say that in the US, we have a very similar situation. Reed Tech is probably the company that does the most outsourcing of UDI data entry into the GUDID database.
Yes.
And we have a similar database. We have the FDA databases, so there's multiple databases. And people joke that, you know, the FDA is not competent, but it's not the individuals that are not competent. It's the infrastructure is ineffective. And that doesn't surprise anybody with a government institution. So in this case, it's a very simple sales process for Richard, because he simply says, well, you can do it all yourself manually, and it'll take you 45 minutes for the first one and 20 for the second, and you might get down to 15 if you're lucky. Or you can have us do it in an automated way, and it will be validated so we know it's accurate. You don't have to worry about data entry errors. It's your choice. And it's a no-brainer for somebody that has 1,000. And when companies ask me for advice, I say, how many parts do you have? If you have 100, it's doable to do yourself. If you have over 100, you probably should not be considering this. If you have 1,000, you should be fired if you are even considering this.
Richard, how do you? Can you give us a sense of how much you charge? How would I even begin to get a sense of my total Houlihan commitment if I go?
For simple ones, and again, one of the things I didn't want to do was absolutely screw people, because for the industry, it's an expense. You guys will never make money on it.
You and I share this philosophy.
We split it up per UDIDI. And the smallest one we have is up to 100 UDIDIs. I think we charge $995.
Is that shy of 1,000 or shy of 10?
Shy of 1,000.
Okay.
Shy of 1,000.
So $10, pardon me, €10 per.
Yeah, but what we do is we give you this, you've got access to it for a year. And this does all the validation. It gives you the templates at the start so you can collate your data. It validates, it gives you the XML to upload, etc. At the highest end, I think we're below 10,000.
His pricing at the low end is less than everybody else. So it's really not a decision-making process. He's the most knowledgeable, most experienced, started on it first, has firsthand knowledge, and he's cheaper.
Rob, do you want to come do my marketing?
Hey,
May I chime in on this one?
Hey, I'll send you customers. Just keep my customers happy.
Rob, stay in your own lane. God.
May I chime in on Rob?
Of course.
Because you mentioned Reed Tech, and in my knowledge, it's the only one that promises that you supply your data, and then they will put part of it to the FDA, to the GUDID, and a part of it to the Eudamed, and also they promise to do the same for Saudi Arabia, China, whatever. And for a company, that is a great promise. I don't know the quality of the work that Reed Tech does, but supply only your data once instead of having your data through one system for the FDA and to the other system for the Eudamed.
Absolutely. We've got our roadmap for that.
I never use their product, but I know quite a few people at the Reed Tech organization, specifically around UDI. Gary Sainers, he's great. So I believe that they're really quite a solid organization.
I went to dinner with a couple of the Reed Tech guys in Brussels just after I left the commission. Great guys. I've no problems with them. I thought they were very good.
Karandeep, I brought you on both because we need a little bit of youth here, and because you're there in the UK. You're probably familiar with what Eddie's talking about, the CA mark, and I just wondered what you're hearing and if you have any perspective to lend.
No, I think what he's done is a wonderful system. You know, biggest thing that comes down to is time, basically. So anything out there that can save time for a company, and particularly for the big companies, we've got hundreds and even sometimes thousands of products, and it might just be one product, but it might have 40 different variants. So you've now got 40 different UDI numbers. So I think that's a good system. In terms of the UK CA mark, I suppose one advantage that we have in the UK is we're still following the old MDD, Medical Device Directive. And that's really advantageous for software products, because as the new MDR regulation came in, they moved to class 2, depending on the claims that they're making, which means you needed a notified body to get on the market. Within the UK, because we're still using the old MDD, there's a lot of products out there that can continue to be class 1 and be self-certified. So the cost of bringing that down in the UK is much less compared to the EU, where you need a notified body.
I had no idea that anyone stayed behind in MDD. Apparently Michelle's multitasking. I invited her to come on twice because she's my MDR authority. But I thought it was like, come May 2024, you're out of business in Europe if you don't. And perhaps
Not in Europe,
defined as
in
X.
Britain.
Yeah. Those
The
outliers.
UK, I can't remember the dates in the UK. I think you're going to stay running with it for now.
They're in discussions at the moment. I think they're going to come up with their own variant of a medical device. I mean, it's called the Medical Device Regulation, even though it's the old MDD. So they've called it the UK MDR, which even adds to the confusion.
Yeah.
And my lady friend is coming on now, I think. Here she is.
Michelle will be out getting her rocks in place.
I didn't know about this this outlier, this Great Britain with their MDD use. Is that the only place left that was anything having to do with the place formerly known as Western Europe?
Oh, this is fun. So I learned this from Monisha with TÜV-SÜD, the UK division recently. So you've got the UK CE mark, but you also have a UK NI mark for Northern Ireland. And so like, it's like, if you have a normal CE mark in the EU, you don't have to have a UK NI mark, but you do have to have a UK CE mark. If you have a UK CE mark, but you don't have a EU CE mark, you have to have a UK CE and a UK NI mark on your label, both on your labeling.
I just need to announce here, there's a platform called otter.ai that you can take this recording and throw it in, and it will give you a transcript of it, because I would totally need to see that written out and think about.
Yeah, it's a little like a magic trick. It's like, we're going to shuffle it all around and then see what.
And you know, at some point they're going to like come together, and then all the extra Northern Ireland, Great Britain, European, and you're going to move all the chairs around again. It's just, can we get back to innovating and helping people?
While. It's a very confusing situation at the moment. I mean, if you think of a Venn diagram, you've got Europe, you've got the UK, and Northern Ireland is that little bit in the middle that's got a foot in both camps.
Now I'm just thinking, can't we all just get along?
Hey.
Apparently not. We can't get along, and we can't play nice either.
See, Michelle, when the women take over, everything will be fixed.
I know, right? The whole world will be at peace.
Yeah. The grown-ups in the room.
May I bring up another point?
Go ahead.
May I bring up another point?
Of course.
Like, an old professor of mine who said, your ideas must be resistant to writing it down, because if you write it down, they become real. And it's a bit the same with Eudamed. Because of Eudamed, I mean, you collect a lot of data, and Eudamed really obliges you to put it into the database. And before that, you, as a company, you could just keep it into your own quality system without showing it to anybody except the auditor if he came by every year or every last audit. And you see a lot of companies shying down from, even my company dropped a complete quality system, not only for this, but they saw it coming that we have bad data and we have to put it into Eudamed. That's not going to stick. So a lot of people are getting really scared of using their data to put in Eudamed, and they just they throw their devices off they're not how to say it. They don't have the EU CE mark anymore, just because they're afraid of getting it into Eudamed.
Yeah, but you know, it's a huge market to walk away from. I know some companies might be, oh, I'm not playing anymore in Europe because of this, but you're walking away from a massive market.
You know, I think that depends on the value of your product. I mean, if you have a commodity product that's like retails for a couple of dollars, I mean, you got to sell a lot of wound drainage catheters that are now a class 3 device to make it worth the maintenance fees.
Absolutely.
All the notified bodies were very clear. You should do a portfolio evaluation. So they didn't pull any punches. They said there are going to be some products that you're not going to CE mark anymore because they just don't sell enough to make it worth the fees that we're going to charge you. So companies that are saying, well, I'll wait, they're just repeating the mistakes that they made 3 years ago when they didn't prepare for the MDR then. Now they need to prepare for Eudamed now. No, I'll wait until it's mandatory. It's a bad move.
I mean, one of the things I mentioned to Michelle, I was talking to Michelle a couple of weeks ago on a podcast with her, and one of the things that we did in the commission to try and make life easier, especially with the US, we tried to match the HL7 code to the fields that we were going to have for Eudamed. And I had 2 business analysts on it, and we left them there for 3 weeks, and then we called a halt. There was way too many fields within the Eudamed side. So the level of data that is actually going to be, that is required from Eudamed is far in advance of what's going with the FDA. But in my opinion, purely my opinion, if you step forward 10 years and you see the level of statistics that we're going to get out of Eudamed, it would be absolutely phenomenal. I can see the FDA then going at least as far as Eudamed, if not a little bit further again. There's my crystal ball.
They're resisting post-market surveillance at every turn. And the way it's set up, it has to be a legislative action. So Congress has to say, you shall do post-market surveillance. So what we need is a major recall that's a class 1 that involves hundreds of thousands of people like we had in Europe with the PIP scandal. That's what it takes. And when that happens, that's when the FDA will now embrace post-market surveillance and have an updated system. But until then, it's not going to happen.
Is it that they're so stretched that they can't deal with implementing that system?
No, it's a negotiation process. You have politicians trying to build compromises. They're paid by industry that doesn't want any change or wants it streamlined and reduced. And you have people that are understanding the benefits of post-market surveillance for safety reasons saying, we need this. And those two are at opposite poles. And so the politician in the middle says, well, when you show me that one side's stronger than the other, I'll go that way. In the middle, I'm going to say, you two work it out between yourselves, and I'm going to do nothing.
Yeah, Rob, I personally, I get a sense that you're optimistic about it being only one major event when actually people then, because if you look back in the 1860s, there was a big cholera epidemic in London, but it took that cholera epidemic and another one before they actually said, oh, we'll actually do something about public health.
Yeah,
you know?
And it wasn't
we're
just
now in our second pandemic in 100 years. They still don't seem to have it quite right.
No, and the PIP scandal wasn't just the PIP scandal, it was also the metal on metal hip implants and a few other things. But it takes the right mix of conditions to get Congress to make a new law. And that's what our system is set up for. We have to have a new law. And the only thing that will make that happen is a lot of people have to die.
You have got Andre's Italian blood boiling.
No,
boiling and rolling. And
it's not that it's not, I'm not saying, I've said in writing on my blog post, this is what we ought to have. Just add post-market surveillance to the 510K process. Just do that, or add it to de novo, and they won't do it.
All right, but and I know that all the regulatory people here might not want to hear this, but I just want to say generally on my soapbox that all of these additional regulations are just going to push all small companies out of the medical device market. It's going to stop the innovation that typically comes from small companies, and we're just not going to make it anymore. I have customers already saying, forget the CE mark, drop it. Forget that industry. Forget every time they hear another regulatory thing, they drop it. And those companies came to us to develop those products originally from scratch, innovative products that we developed and put on the market. They might not sell tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. They might sell thousands, but that medical device that helped one person survive an illness is not going to be on the market anymore, thanks to all of this regulation. So you got me on the wrong side of this because and listen, we've been in business for 52 years. We pride ourselves on our quality, on making products that are properly manufactured under GMP and everything else. I'm not out to avoid those things, but you're going to kill us with all these regulations that I just can't afford to do and my customers don't want to do.
Are you saying that post-market is the thing, Andre? That's the camel's back?
Well, I mean, to the extent of what they're talking about, with the listing on Eudamed and all this other stuff, you don't want to expose this stuff. Of course, we do post-market analysis. We do clinical evaluations every year. We meet those requirements, but the more and more they put on us is just going to make it impossible. And people are going to walk away.
And the other issue around post-market surveillance is how long is this post-market surveillance? And once it's in place, again, a regulator can just say, well, just do it for another 6 months, another 6 months. And then it just becomes this, ever increasing thing.
Well, and absolutely.
But when they actually went back to the notified bodies as joint review teams, and they looked at different technical files to see if the companies were actually doing the post-market surveillance, Andre's company was in the minority. There were lots of high-risk companies that weren't doing their job. Yeah. They weren't complying with their post-market surveillance plans. And their only excuse was, well, we didn't have enough people sign up. Because you didn't try. You purposely did nothing to go get that data. And so Andre's here doing his job, getting the information. The big guys weren't. So the knee-jerk reaction of the politicians in Europe is, well, we'll just make it impossible for them not to comply. But that hurts the little guy. The politician doesn't care because the little guy isn't padding his wallet.
Right. All right.
Even Basil Akra said that at the end of the day, it's just more documentation. It's not, and it doesn't prove that the products are safer. It's not making the products safer. It's just making them, it's more difficult and more expensive.
Yeah.
If you have to take that data and analyze it and decide, well, this category of devices is low risk. I don't need to do as much regulation of it. In this category is higher risk than I expected. I need to do more regulation than I expected. But they're not doing that. They're just saying you need to give us tons of data, period. And there are no exceptions.
Rob, to that point, I mean, I would add another thing. If you've got something on the market that's been there for a long time and has no reports or any problems, leave it alone. We have one device we've been manufacturing since 2006. That's 15 years now. Probably at this point, hundreds of thousands of them out there. Not a single MDR report, no recall, no problems. And yet every year I got to do all the post-market analysis. That's unreasonable.
But Andre, you're forgetting about the new MDR that has the infamous line saying you have to be state of the art.
Yeah.
So you have to review it every now and then.
Michelle, you did a whole presentation about this.
I mean, Richard Houlihan is the only one who's being silent on his own show.
Let's give you the floor for a moment, folks.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I missed that last bit there.
The last bit was we put you on the spot and said, say something.
Well, you see, I'm kind of caught between a rock and a hard place because I'm actually a fan of the regulations, which goes against probably all of my customers. But
you're out of arm's reach from Andre in New Jersey.
But to be honest, the only reason I'm a fan of the regulations is because it does provide a level of transparency. At the moment, if I go to the doctor and he says, right, you need a hip replacement, all I can do is go, okay. I don't know anything about the devices, but when Eudamed is there, no, it will take a few years, but when Eudamed is there, he's going to go, you're getting this hip replacement. I can go to Eudamed. I can get all the history. Now, I mightn't understand it all.
You're not gonna.
It's all there. All the incidents, all the issues.
I think like the tiniest percentage of patients would be like, yeah, let me go look in the database and see the history of this.
What will most likely happen is it'll be the doctor that will sit with them and go through it. But
I don't see it.
For the overall costs that it's imposing on companies and for the damage it's doing to the small companies, I think it's a nightmare.
But
I
think the example of a class 3 implant though.
I think Eudamed could have been done far more simply. Now, for me and my business, it's perfect because it's just complicated enough that it makes you guys' life a nightmare. So you need somebody like me or ReadTech or one of the other companies to help out. But I really do think it could have been done more simply so that any Wally under the sun could fill it in. At the working groups, they were asked, could you provide an idiot's guide? And it's not a nice term to put it, but it's basically what they were asking. Something really simplified, because they said, it's not going to be the IT nerds of this world that are going to be trying to figure this out. And the guy laughed and he said, look, the medical device companies have their own IT teams. Eudamed is software. We will not be investing in that type of document. End of.
Basically, we're not going to make a user's guide. You guys figure it out. Is that what you just said?
Hey, even the user's guide that they have created, it ain't all that simple to follow through. There's a lot of ambiguity. There's a lot of information that should have been put in that isn't there.
I'm just
Some
saying.
of the emails I've sent to the commission asking, what exactly do you mean here? Because this is what we're doing. And they've come back and go, we are not regulatory support. Our job is to point you on the published. Our job is to point you to the published documents.
I can't tell you.
They're not regulatory support because the regulators don't even know what they meant to say.
No, they don't.
If I worked there, do you know how fast I would get myself fired?
Oh, I do.
I don't think I'd last a week.
I don't think you would get yourself hired.
We all agree.
Joe, I sat there for 8 years. This Eudamed project has been the toughest project I ever got involved in. Honest to God, and it's a fairly data-wise, it's a fairly straightforward system, or should be, but it was seriously tough. You've bureaucrats deciding things that they don't understand. They've never been in the medical device industry. They never sat beside someone in the medical device industry. And yet the bureaucrats are the final arbiters.
I'm gonna put everyone back in the gallery, because for the last 20 minutes we've enjoyed our little session of, man, this is messed up.
Quickly, Richard, today on the RAPS forum, there's like 2 posts that are really long about Eudamed. If you're not a member of RAPS, you might want to consider it for marketing, so you can go in and answer the questions. And
Actually,
they say, oh, by the way.
I think I do have access there, because I did a spot for them a few weeks back.
Mhm.
I'll go in and have a look.
Yep.
And anybody can always email me on eudamed.com.
That's my
Always
favorite.
willing to help.
Richard, help us. What are the? We're going to do your hour-long presentation in 5 minutes now. I just showed up.
Okay.
Handsome bald guy is telling us about this thing. What do I need to know?
Well, the first thing, how many UDIDIs do you have? Rob mentioned up to 100 you could type them in. I think it's too high. If you've got about 20, you could type them in, because people make mistakes. And when you submit your data to Eudamed, it's there, it's live. So if you have to go and correct it, that means you have to create a new version. So suddenly you're at version 2, version 3, version 4.
For €10, I can avoid that trouble.
For a lot less than €10.
Rob
Retake says
writes
under
that
25.
Retake saying fewer than 25.
For a lot less than €10, we can take your data, we can validate it, we can.
Can I take, like, again, I'm thinking very primitively, can I take my Excel spreadsheet and upload it into your system?
No, but you can take our Excel spreadsheet, because our Excel spreadsheet has to be designed to match the requirements of Eudamed.
Understood. But so you could take my Excel spreadsheet data, put it in the columns in the format that you require, and upload it.
Yeah.
So that
Or
there's no
if
retyping. It's just
you physically don't even want to touch our system, we've started calling it a pass-through, because we didn't expect people to want to do this. But some companies want our system, but they don't want to touch it. They want to send JSON data automatically. JSON data is just basically text. They want to send that data to us. We suck it in, we validate it, we XML it, we ship it on to Eudamed, and then send back the answers to them. They just want our bit in the middle, just as a service that they don't touch. And
Right.
so far we're talking with companies, and I think the biggest of them had just under 100,000 devices that are looking at doing this. Smaller companies, 100, 200, 400, 500 devices, it's chump change. It really is.
Are you a one-person shop with consultants that helped you build things, or do you have employees, or what?
We've 7 people in total between consultants and employees. And from an IT point of view, it's more than enough. More than enough.
Are
Obviously,
you aware of anyone else do you have any competitors in this space?
Retech was one we spoke about.
Yeah.
They would be I suppose they would be the biggest, but there's nobody, and I'm going to blow my own trumpet now. There is nobody with as much Eudamed information as I have.
No, I totally get that. I'm just thinking, again, with my relative naivete of the topic, I know about GUDID, etc. from my friends at ReadTech. They did a couple of webinars with me, and I understood that. I don't know if I think of the Eudamed software and the things that are required to be somewhat different than GUDID. So perhaps ReadTech also built a Eudamed platform. Is that the case? So only the two of you?
They have. I'm aware of about 3 or 4 companies that have done something, and they're all at various levels of
complexity,
brilliance, whichever way you want to look at it. I offered to do training for a few of them just to explain the various bits and pieces. Some of them were interested, some of them weren't. On the training side, and you mentioned there that you were just trying to get your head around it in 5 minutes. When I tried to explain to people about Eudamed when I first left the commission, it lost them, completely lost them. So the training that we put together, it's 7 hours, it's 2 half days. If there's loads of questions, it'll run over. But it's 7 hours of information just to give you everything on Eudamed.
It's probably been at least a year that you and I spoke like this. Because my recollection was that you were a training company.
We never intended being a training company. We were always going to be software because of my background. But because nobody understood what I was talking about, I said, look, do you want me to put a training course together? It actually took me over 9 weeks to get this thing together. And since then, we've trained hundreds of people from the top companies to the lowest 2-man
But that would
businesses.
be maybe 10 to 20% of your revenue now. It's all about using the platform you built. Yes.
The platform is the main bit.
And that was always your vision?
It was always the intention, always. But
I didn't catch that the first time.
With the training, a lot of people want to talk about Eudamed, but they don't have enough knowledge to ask a question. At the end of the training, they understand. And then they go, oh God, we don't want to touch this. And then they start offloading it, because until you start digging into it, you don't realize how scared you should be.
Luke, you had a question?
Oh, yeah, you buy your codes, your UDI codes from parties like GS1, and aren't they jumping on the bandwagon? I mean, in earlier life, I had contact with GS1, and we wondered, can you get the complexity out of getting all our stuff into Goodit? And they said, yeah, we will do it for you, and they made things worse. It was horrible. they don't do a fine job. So, by your knowledge, are those firms that hand out that you can buy your codes from, are they jumping on the bandwagon, or are they leaving it aside?
They are. They did buy over a company that was doing it. I've heard varying reports. I've never dealt with them myself, so I can't say whether they're good or bad. But there's several groups. I contacted one group a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. No, that's a lie. 1 week ago. It's just the days are running into each other. And I emailed them and asked them for some information about their Eudamed services. And this is supposedly one of the expert Eudamed people. And they went, oh, you can't upload your data to Eudamed at the moment. The XML part isn't working yet. We don't have a delivery date. It's been there for the last 3 weeks. So even some of these expert groups that are out there, they don't understand what's going on.
So is it in fact up and running and they are unaware?
It is completely live. Completely, 100%, because I was kind of shocked because we've uploaded data.
But in the end, I think the medical part is quite small, it's peanuts for them. I mean, they sell a lot of codes to all the Walmarts in this world to get their grocery in the shops, and that's how they make the big money. And the medical part is just a very small niche for them.
There's a lot of people who've tried to jump on the bandwagon of Eudamed because they could see gold in those hills. But when they start digging into it and realize the complexity, they back off, because it's a massive investment. Even to build our software is a massive investment. Anybody who's actually looked at it so far and they've started deciding that, okay, we need to do this in XML because we have too many devices. If they're looking at their own IT teams, go, look, can you build us something quickly? A lot of these IT teams are backing away very, very fast because this is a beast.
Thank you, Luke. So Eudamed being the software, and this is going to be like, oh, I can't believe you're asking this question. Oh, I sent the wrong person back into space.
Like
You don't know
this
what you're
much.
talking about.
I don't know what I'm talking about.
Let me get the smart guy back.
But for another one thing about for Andre's ease of mind, and it's a question to you, Joe. Don't you think there are going to be small companies around, like Michelle is getting the hard part out of quality and regulation, and
Yeah.
Richard is getting the hard part out of getting your stuff into a database?
Yeah.
Don't you think there are going to be small firms that get the hard part out of the regulation parts that Andre is so afraid of? Like we do the post-market surveillance for you.
No, I think Andre's complaint is not so much entering data, which is a nuisance, but it's actually doing the stuff to get the data in the first place. That's his complaint.
And that could be a business model, I guess.
What? I'll help you do the stuff?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure there are people who help you do the stuff.
No, they're
Like
not.
Avania.
Not yet.
Avania?
No, Avania is not doing that kind of stuff. Well, anyway, just throw me off.
Not going to be me, I'll tell you that. All right, now let me send the right person back. So my question, Richard, is I understand now that Eudamed is software.
Yeah.
Should I think of it as for the UK MDD, for the rest of the world, the MDR software to comply with MDR? And
MDR, IVDR, yeah.
And for the UK that's still in MDD land, is Eudamed something that they need to concern themselves with, or is it really just built for the next wave, MDR and IVDR?
For the people in the UK, if they want to sell their product in Europe, they have to be concerned.
Okay.
It's as simple as that, because there is going to come a point where if you're not an Eudamed, you cannot sell product. There's already companies asking.
Because by definition, Eudamed software is the means by which you comply with MDR. And I already knew from many Michelle hours of training that if not MDR, then you're out of business. So now, if not Eudamed to enter MDR, you're out of business.
You see, companies have been so brilliant at preparing for MDR, and they've spent so much money gaining understanding. A lot of them forgot that little piece at the end, or just kind of pushed it to the side. Oh, it's IT, let's forget that.
It took me 70 minutes to understand it. I mean, we've been talking about everything else, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of linear. You know how if Europe, then MDR, well, if MDR, then Eudamed, richardhoulihan.com. Seriously, if you want to be in business in Europe, you better talk to Richard. That's a nice business model right there. You're going to be rich, man.
Oh God, I hope so. I've
and
put
then people are going to be like,
into this.
Eudamed. And
you'll be able to do it then.
Yep.
I like it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Eudamed. For the Americans, everyone else is Eudamed, and that's not as catchy, in my opinion.
It's it's a bizarre name, but hey, I've been stuck with it since 2011 now. So I've
Ladies and gentlemen, next week
here
is fan favorite Nick Anderson, and the week after we have a new MDG premium friend, Anna Brown. She'll be at 10X in May, and she's a new business, and she will love the roundtable of all of your functional expertise to help her figure out how to get from where she is to where she needs to be. So I hope you can join us on the 29th for that. For Joe Hage and Joe Hage Enterprises, this is Joe Hage. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks, Richard. I really enjoyed seeing you again.
Thanks, Joe. Pleasure talking to you.
Be well, everyone. Enjoy the weekend. Bye.